So I put a poll out a few days ago about what cookie you guys wanted to see me do a guide on next. And Crushed Pepper won, but I made Rockstar's guide first. But Crushed Peppers is here. I seriously do think that this was worth the wait, so I do hope it's helpful. Like always, there will be timestamps down below if you want to skip to a certain part of the video. But let's begin. Now I actually have two different builds I want to share with you today. The first one is going to be a buffer slash debuffer build, and the second one is going to be a support build. These builds were made by me and another YouTuber named Nova. He'll be linked down below, as most of the build information did come from him. So I am going to be starting with the debuff build, which is going to be the generic build. The guide card should be on screen right now, and will also be available in the link below in my Discord server. Pause if you want to screenshot it. Alright, let's begin. So starting with artifacts, the best artifact is actually going to be Newest Formula. Now the point of this build is for Crushed Pepper to act as a buffer and or debuffer, and Newest Formula helps with that perfectly. While he does not benefit from the 25% attack, the unique ability is actually what we are going to be looking at. The artifact pretty much says, whenever the cookie does damage with its ultimate, it has a chance to apply elemental shred that corresponds with the cookie's element. Meaning, whenever Crushed Pepper does damage with his ultimate, there's a chance he will inflict fire resistant shred on the enemy. Ideally, you are going to have this at max rank to maximize its potential. The fire resistant shred is seriously what we are after here, because any time that Crushed Pepper is actually used in something like Infinite Labyrinth, his top times always include this artifact or the next artifact. And while a 60% chance seems kind of low to some people, you're pretty much always going to proc it at least once, and at least once is enough. If this isn't your style, then Ninja's Path of Training is. While we do run into the same issue with attack not being useful, the unique ability is what we are after. Path of Training is whenever the cookie's ultimate hits 5 times, nearby allies are granted attack. This is essentially universally good with pretty much every DPS cookie in the game, meaning it's super useful. The only caveat is that because Crushed Pepper's ultimate only hits 3 times, you need 2 or more enemies to actually make this artifact work. So unfortunately, this is not an option in raids. But in a mode like Infinite Labyrinth, this is still very, very good. If you don't want to run an artifact that buffs your teammates, then you can always go with the Spice of Life, his own signature, as it grants him HP, which increases both his damage and his shields, and the unique ability increases the amount of shields he gives, while also increasing his own damage whenever he has a shield. So while this isn't the best for the buffer slash debuffer build, it's his best general artifact. An honorable mention is going to be Muscle Cookie's Warm Up, as it also grants attack, which again increases his damage and his shielding, and the unique ability is essentially a budget version of the Spice of Life, increasing his shield strength by 12% and increasing his defense while shielded. So as a recap, Newest Formula is the best for the buffer slash debuffer build. Path of Training is second, but only if there are 2 or more enemies. The Spice of Life is third because of survivability, and Warm Up is fourth because, again, survivability. For his equipment, his best unique is going to be the Triple Hot Pepper Gauntlet. This is because it's his signature, and it's a unique, meaning you can get 2 hidden powers on it. And because it's his unique, it gives him shield strength. Now, if you don't have this, Pistachios, Chamomiles, and Muscle Cookie's uniques are also viable because they are main stat HP. Not only that, because they are uniques, they get 2 hidden powers. So even if they aren't his unique, they are still better than every single other epic in the game. The only other viable option for weapons is the Blueberry Magic Wand, as it gives HP as its unique ability. We actually have 3 options for super epic sets. The first one is Snow Strider's gear, and that's because of its passive, which is when the equipped cookie is shielded, it reduces nearby enemies' elemental resistance by 5%. And in Crushed Pepper's case, it's their fire resistance. And if you pair this with something like Newest Formula, that's essentially an 8% elemental resistance shred. Not only that, but Snow Striders actually increases shield strength by 20% as well. So you get a bit of both worlds. The second best for the debuff slash buff build is going to be Ghost Captain's Garb. And that's because, again, of its passive, using a special skill reduces nearby enemies' defense by 20%. The only issue with this set is he doesn't really benefit from anything else, as he cannot use the attack percent. But because the goal of this build is to act as a buffer slash debuffer, Ghost Captain's works perfectly. The final viable option is going to be the Priest of Purity Garment. Now this set actually has nothing to do with buffing or debuffing, but it's worth mentioning considering it's the ultimate healing slash shielding set. So if you just want a ton of shielding on Crushed Pepper, then you can definitely run this. But you do not get the benefits of being a buffer slash debuffer. As far as other super epics go, any super epic that has HP as its unique ability, like the Eminent Herbalist's Garb, is usable. Because the only stat you really want is HP, HP percentage or shield strength. If you aren't able to make a full set of armor, then something like this can still be useful to you. And it's okay to mix and match super epic pieces if you don't have a full set of any of them. As far as other epic pieces go, the best headwear is going to be the Radiant Guardian's Sugar Helm. For bodywear, it's going to be the Magical Blueberry Dress. And for legwear, it's going to be Forest Keeper's Jelly Pants and the Magical Barrel Pants. The first two are good because they give HP, and the latter two are good because there's nothing better. This time around, hidden powers are quite simple. You want HP and shielding. It doesn't matter which, you just want one of the two. The goal of this build is to be a shielder and a buffer/debuffer, so no other stat really matters. This build does really only work with other fire cookies, so if you want to run this, make sure you are running it with other fire type cookies, like chili pepper, mala sauce, and cherry. This build is also going to be most ideal for Infinite Labyrinth, and that's because you need 3 separate teams, so he can definitely work on one of them. The next build is going to be the support build. Pause if you want to screenshot it, and let's go. The first artifact I want to talk about is the Spice of Life. Now this time around, there are only 2 artifacts to talk about, and I already talked about them earlier, but I am going to talk about them again. Now, Spice of Life gives HP as its base stat, which is good because Crushed Pepper's shielding and damage scales off of it. And the unique ability is also good because it increases the amount of shield that he gives to his allies. Also, whenever he's shielded, he gets increased damage. Like I mentioned earlier, this is his all-around best artifact as it increases his own damage, his own survivability, blah blah blah. It's just really good, and this is what you want to run on his support build. The other artifact worth mentioning is Muscle Cookie's Warm-Up. Unlike Spice of Life though, it increases his defense when he's shielded, as it also has an HP main stat, and its ability also increases shield strength, which is actually kind of useless. The other 2 parts of it are actually good enough, so yeah, it's a good substitute for the Spice of Life if you do not have it. In summary, Spice of Life is your best option, as it increases his health and his damage, and the amounts of shield he gives, with Warm-Up being a good enough substitute for it by only increasing his own health and his shield strength. His best weapon is going to be the Triple Hot Pepper Gauntlet, as it's A, his unique, B, it has an HP main stat, and C, because it's a unique, it gets 2 hidden powers. But if you don't have this, any other HP unique also works, like Pistachio, Chamomile's, or Muscle Cookie's unique, as they all have HP main stats, making them automatically better than every single other weapon in the game, even if Crushed Pepper does not get the Tower Climber effect. The only other weapon worth mentioning is the Blueberry Magic Wand, as its unique ability has HP, meaning, you know, more damage and shielding. But again, if you have any other unique that has an HP main stat, you are better off running that. This time around, we only have 2 super epic sets to talk about, with the first one being the Priest of Purity Garment. This is his by far best in slot for a shielder build, as not only do 2 of its pieces grant extra HP, when you unlock the full set, you get 20% shield strength and 20% more HP, increasing your overall survivability and damage. But because I know no one in the game has access to that yet, Snowstrider's gear is your second best bet. While this is more of a debuffer set, its set bonus actually increases shield strength by 20%. Not to mention that the effect can actually be kind of useful for increasing Crushed Pepper's own personal damage. So it can be nice if you're running him in a raid and you want to do a bit more damage. It's also useful if you happen to be bringing him with fire cookies. Just like before, any current or future super epic pieces with the HP unique ability or the shield unique ability are also usable. Do not be afraid to mix and match pieces if you cannot yet make a full set of one or the other, as super epics are better than epics. But speaking of epics, the usable epic headwears are going to be the Radiant Guardian's Sugar Helm and the Blazing Marshmallow Hat, and the latter gives you a little bit more shield strength. The former gives you a little bit more damage. For bodywear, it's going to be the Magical Blueberry Dress and the Antique Golden Cape. The same applies. The former gives more damage, the latter gives more shield strength. And finally, for legwear, the Forest Keeper's Jelly Pants and the Magical Barrel Pants are equal because both are just there's nothing better. For your hidden powers, it's quite simple. You want HP percentage and shielding strength. Steer clear of crit because if you build crit rate, you need crit damage, but if you get crit damage, it's useless without crit rate. Elemental damage is alright if you roll into it, but again, you want to focus on HP percentage and shield strength. For the support build, you can pretty much throw Crushed Pepper into any team and he will work as a sustainer, unlike the buffer/debuffer build, which is only recommended with fire type cookies. As you can see on screen, this is my Crushed Pepper build. Here's a bit of a better look, and let's finally get to the review. Crushed Pepper Cookie is actually one of my favorite characters in the game. He's just behind Lemon Zest. For being a like shieldy, supporty tank, he's oddly fun to play because he does a decent amount of damage as well. And the fact that he can be used in such versatile ways just makes him even cooler. While he's not leaderboard material for raids, he's still really fun to run in public lobbies because he can keep a team alive really well. He's also nice to have an infinite labyrinth, especially because there's the debuffing build for that. Because he's a support, there aren't really many tips I can give, but I actually have a couple. The first one is to make sure you maximize your charge. Do not use your ultimate or your special skill if you have full charge for your shield. Your special skill is actually your biggest charge giver, as it just gives you a big chunk of charge really fast. So make sure you do not waste it. Crushed Pepper actually has 100% uptime on his shield if you play him properly, so make sure you achieve that 100% uptime. His charge attacks actually give more charge than his basic attacks, but his basic attacks are faster. So if something is invulnerable or you just can't attack it at the moment, you can always charge up an attack to get a big boost of charge and then spam your smaller attacks. Also, one thing to note is that in story mode levels, his ultimate does not allow you to get to higher terrain. Also, keep in mind that his ultimate aura, like the little fire aura around him, does not crit. Final tip I have is that if you're in a sticky situation and you don't have your dash, you can always just charge up an attack and go forward a really long distance, as even though it takes time to charge it up, you can just get out of there super duper fast with the dash. And that's all I have for you in today's video. Sorry the guide cards are a little more confusing this time, but I hope all the extra information on them is helpful to someone. This was by far my hardest guide to make, so I hope you guys found it helpful. If you did, a like and a subscribe would be very appreciated. And also remember to check out Nova's channel in the description below, as his information was crucial to making this video. Also remember to join my Discord server. I hope you all have a good day. Also peep the gameplay.